Peace, peace, you all. It is Akila McQueen, aka Empress Awakening, the hearts, the minds, and the spirits of all those that I may encounter.
Peace, family. It's Supreme Eye here with the Queen.
Today we are going to be discussing silence.
So we basically are putting this video forth organically, no notes or nothing, to talk about the importance of silence and why it's important in our spiritual development and growth as a whole to be holistic beings. So I'll let the Queen start.
Okay. Silence is important because when we are able to sit with ourselves in our silence, we are able to tap into the outer universe and our inner universe. And within that silence, we gain so much powerful information that help us to progress on our paths. In our society, or I should say in the western part of the hemisphere where philosophy is dominated by Western European culture, we are taught that thinking is normal to do on a consistent basis, whereas other parts of the world, thinking too much can be a detriment to yourself. And so that's why you might hear a lot of people say you should meditate, or you should do things like yoga, or you should take time to partake in some type of artistry, such as music or painting or writing or different things like that. Because in those moments that you are working on those things or that you're doing those things, you experience the true meaning of silence. And those spaces, those gaps of silence that you are gifted, the divine starts to pour into you. And that's why sometimes let's say somebody who's a musician, and they could just like really just get into it. They're not even thinking about what they're playing or what they're singing or anything like that. And they deliver their best work because they're not allowing the ego to come in and disrupt that line of work that they're doing. And it's because we can become very critical, very judgmental, very I know some words here. When we're doing it, we can become too involved with our ego mind rather than doing or conducting things with our spiritual selves, our higher self. So that's why it's so important to just take that time to just be. Don't allow anything to infiltrate from the outside, and don't allow your ego to infiltrate by saying all these non-serving things to you. Anything you'd like to add to that?
Definitely. The silence is one of the most important temples that we can commune in terms of our solar development, because what it gives us is the opportunity to rejuvenate and heal our mental and emotional and physical body. In everything in creation, in nature, there's a rhythm, oscillating back and forth. And that rhythm, as it relates to silence, would be rest and activity, rest and activity. So, as the Queen was pointing out, over here in the West, we overemphasize. We're pretty much left brain dominant, so we're always thinking. And thinking is not necessarily the best thing to do. We have to know when to wield thinking and when not to wield it. Because thinking is here to help us out. Essentially, it's for us to cut and fragment what we see so that we can digest it, But the thing is that we have to incorporate other mental faculties, such as our right brain, so we can see the whole picture. Because reality is a unified whole, so we can't just interpret and codify reality based off of thinking. Because thinking, like we just said, fragments reality. What we need is something that's going to afford us the opportunity to see the whole picture. And what that does is, and what that is for us is silence. And if you look at the word silence, you see it's an anagram, which means you just take away the vowels. You see it's an anagram for the word listen. And also stillness, in a sense. So by silence, all we're essentially doing is you're stilling the mind. And this is truly one of the only ways that we can actually come into God realization, and self realization. Because essentially, the only way that we're going to be able to transduce higher vibrational energy is if we are still, if we still our minds. It's the only thing that's going to allow us to see who we are in the grand truth of nature. That's why you hear in all popular myths, spiritual stories, and things of that nature, with people they're like, all right, I'm gonna go to the mountains and just meditate by myself. It's not that going to the mountain and secluding yourself does these things, but what it is you have glimpses of divine realizations in silent moments.
Encapsulates you.
It encapsulates you. What silence is essentially a gap. So it in itself is a heavy meditation to commune in silence. To commune in silence is a heavy meditation, because what it does once again is it allows you to look at yourself. Once you start engaging in the process of looking at yourself, you'll be able to be silent in situations where you weren't silent before. You might see something go on, and you might want to speak on that and get involved in it and attach yourself to that circumstance that's happening. But what silence does is it lets you see the natural progression of a circumstance if you didn't involve your personality in it. It helps you attach the souls into the soul plane rather than being attached to the ego or the personality or the physical plane.
Yeah, but definitely helps you to just tap into your spiritual self, to tap into other dimensions, to allow your spirit guides, your angels, your whomever, however you name the things that you interconnect with, to connect with you. They say that when we pray, we talk to God, and when we meditate, God talks to us. And that I use the word God loosely because we all have many different names of how we describe divinity and creation and things like that. So however you choose to call on it, just know that that's the period of time where it starts to pour itself into you, as I was saying earlier. So to not do too much talking, we would like to end off with a nice quote that deals with silence that Queen will deliver to us.
Let me see if I can remember. It is in silence that I'm able to melt and dissolve my individuality and merge into universal oneness. Yeah.
Let that marinate. We thank you all for taking the time out to watch this video. Please look forward to more. Also, comment below and let us know if there's anything else you would like us to talk about, or want to share your experiences while you have had your moments of silence and anything like that. Thank you, thank you. Lots of love, lots of peace,
Peace.
and joy sent to you from us.